Mayor, seems like the big thing might be looking at voters facing a bond election surrounding Project Marble. Given how it's a bit of a divisive project, how critical could this infrastructure bond vote be for the overall project?
So let's be clear. So bond programs, bond votes are for infrastructure generally for the city. We know that historically bond proposals for downtown infrastructure are pretty significant because it's a place where people convene and there's a lot of historic infrastructure that needs to be repaired and upgraded. So irrespective of the bond, irrespective of the infrastructure bond for downtown, there's elements of Project Marble, again, which is shorthand for all of these different projects coming together already happening.
Right, but I mean, you have different opinions on Project Marble as a whole. So the fact that this general obligation bond would be tied to Marble, do you have any concern that voters might vote it down out of spite, or if they don't like Project Marble, even though they might typically like an infrastructure bond?
Not if we do our jobs right, because again, Project Marble is, in my view, shorthand for a number of projects that are already taking place in downtown. If you add the element to the Spurs' future home being the arena in downtown San Antonio, we're proposing doing that using the revenues that would be generated from that specific development. So this is a boon for San Antonio in terms of uplifting the place where people convene in San Antonio, which in many respects is downtown. So we know that we have needs for upgraded infrastructure. We know we need better parking. We need a better transit in downtown San Antonio. So all of that needs to happen. I'm confident that voters and future elected officials will see the wisdom in moving forward with all of this.
Mayor, what is the responsibility that falls on the city, on council, on everybody in the next 4 or 5 months to make sure that voters are educated on this, especially with the community meetings coming up?
I think we need to continue to have a transparent process, and I think we need to cut out all of the rhetoric and talk about what the project actually is. Look, we have had for the last 15 years plans to upgrade our convention center. That's part of what we're talking about here. We know that the Alamo Dome, which is our major event center for large-scale 60,000 plus people events in San Antonio, also is 30 years old and needs significant upgrades. That's what we're talking about here. We're also talking about something that voters have already approved, which is the hemisphere redevelopment. The only thing different here that we're talking about is tying all these things together into a comprehensive vision that will also consider the future of the San Antonio Spurs being in San Antonio. If we can do that by also using the revenues that are produced by those specific developments, that's a win-win for everybody. So I think we just need to be clear. It is a very complicated process that has a lot of moving parts and a lot of projects, but if and when we complete this, and I think it's when we complete this for San Antonio, downtown is going to be bigger and downtown is going to be better than ever, and it will be a boon for every resident of this city.
There hasn't been a super clear answer about what happens if these don't pass. The bond doesn't pass. What happens if the venue tax isn't voted to be used for Spurs Arena? How important does that make it for voters this November?
Look, if we got caught up with the prospect of failing on our goals, we would never get past go. I mean, we want to take what the community has been asking for years, which is a more vibrant, welcoming downtown that's easier to get to and easier to move around in and has more fun things to do in it. We're trying to deliver that, and we're trying to do it in a fiscally prudent manner. Yeah, there's always opportunities for things to go wrong, but I'm trusting of the public, and I'm trusting of the people who are working so hard to get this done that we can make it a great project and make it a big success.
What about the figures? Because we're not seeing those exact numbers on how much money we'll be getting from each of the funding frameworks that have been laid out. We know that was brought up by Councilman Castillo. What do you say to people that are wanting those numbers.
Yeah, well, so this is part of a public process that is transparent. Sometimes when the work is being done and it's ongoing, we don't have all the answers, but we're putting, so staff, the Spurs, the county, everybody is putting this out and getting those answers as we move forward. And part of it is getting the public input as we move forward. But I'll tell you, we also need to know how much of the venue tax is going to go into different aspects of the county's proposals. When all those things start to lock in place, we will have surety. But I will tell you, what's important to me is what Ben shared, which is that the revenue generated from the development that will be guaranteed, that isn't there today, only happens if we, put this project together. Those are the revenues that would be paying for the arena. It's not going to be from residents' property taxes. It's not going to be from a sales tax proposition. So Project Marvel comes to fruition by the actual development that's produced by the vision.
The council's going to have a shakeup in about a week and a half. You're going to have new people on there who are going to be approving key parts of this or possibly voting them down. You've heard several of the returning council members have their doubts about Project Marvel. Could the work, I guess, that's been done under your administration be completely undone by a new council? Could you see this project kind of fade away?
So look, it's a new council and a new mayor, but the public's priorities will continue on. They don't wait for the changing of the guard politically. What I know is this, the public has always wanted us to be prudent with their tax dollars. We are doing that with this project. The public wants us to improve infrastructure, not just in downtown San Antonio, but all across the city. We are doing that with this project. The public also supports the Spurs if we're being fiscally prudent and they're being good partners, which that we are all doing in this project. So as long as those remain the priorities of this city and the residents in this city, the next leadership, I trust, will do the right thing.
Thanks. The last thing I have for you, you guys are saying that the public tax dollars aren't going to the buildings, they're not going to the arena, they're not going to convention center, all of those things.
Yeah.
But you can't have any of those projects without roads and the bridges and walkways and sidewalks, which the infrastructure bond is going to go to. So do you think that's kind of disrupted messaging there?
No, we're talking, so what I have heard is that the public, and I agree, doesn't want to see residential tax dollars going into an arena. We're not going to do that. What is going to happen, and the revenue sources that Ben outlined in this proposal is from the development that actually is brought to the specific area in the downtown sports and entertainment district. If those projects don't happen, there's no arena. The good part about that is those projects are going to come with a guarantee. And so those projects happen and the arena gets funded. So that's what I hear when people say, we don't want tax dollars going to an arena. Our general tax dollars go to fund streets and sidewalks and police and parks. That's going to happen whether it's downtown or in somebody else's neighborhood.
Thanks, everybody.